Hey guys, and welcome to Mixed Nuts, the series where I talk about random stuff. Alright, so today's episode is adventure books. 80s, 90s, pretty much. I think these were very popular in the 80s. I do remember some being published in the 90s as well, especially, you can tell me, did you used to play the Pick-a-Puff Adventures in the 90s? Yeah, I think I didn't actually check the date, but they were very popular in the 80s and 90s, these books. I don't see any publishing dates on here, but yeah. So there are three kinds of books that this is basically my collection right here. Can you see all these in the camera? Yeah, this is basically my collection right here. I'm trying to stash, get a little bit more. Pretty much pick all of these up in secondhand stores. There's a very cool shop that I go to, a hospice shop close to our house here, and they often have some of these books. I've picked pretty much all of these up at the shop. Now these are Osborne books, and I really like these. They're directed at kids, and they're very comic based. So if I just show you quickly what it's about, you might get a story. Like this one is Agent Arthur's Desert Challenge, right? And it gives you a scenario and a story, and basically every page is almost like there's a lot of text, but there's a lot of illustration. It's almost like a comic book, almost. There's so many illustrations in there, it could pass as one. And every page, or every few pages, it gives you a puzzle, a biggest puzzle. It could be a maze or a code to crack, or, like look at this. You've got a journey puzzle, and you've got things like cryptograms and all sorts, really, like secret messages, and there's just a good variety of stuff. Now that's one style of book. Many of them came out, and I'm trying to collect a lot of them. Now the other style of book was the Pick-a-Puffs. These ones were basically as simple as, you could put it as simply as books with a few choices. There was a lot of text, and every few pages you would make a choice, a decision to take you to a different part of the book. And I'm trying to find here, there was not actually, there was more reading than choosing. So you'd have a few pages of reading, as you see in this case, it's maybe 4 or 5 pages, and then you make one of 3 choices to turn to a certain page and progress the story. And you can either die or get a bad ending, etc., etc. So,
or a positive ending.
Yeah.
You said die or bad.
Yeah, I kind of left it on a bizarre note there. But yeah, so this one is, for example, called Mountain of Mirrors. And again, really like these games, and they're sort of like, again, directed more at kids, because, I guess intermediate fiction or something like that. They're really, really cool books, and this one is written by R.L. Stine, actually. That's the guy who did Goosebumps, I think. So yeah, they're really cool books, and they're more like interactive novels, I guess, because there's quite a bit of text in them, and yeah, enjoy those as well. Now my favorite of the lot though are these ones here, and I'm just going to go down to my stash. Alright, so my favorite ones are these ones here, the fighting fantasy books, and they're ones done by Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. This one is Ian Livingstone. This is one of my favorites, Forest of Doom. Brilliant book. Now these ones they're still, I guess you could call them intermediate fiction, but I think these are sort of targeted towards older kids. Now these ones are my favorite for a few reasons. There is a lot of illustrations. They're very Dungeons and Dragons inspired, and there is not a lot of there is a lot of text in the book, but there is not a lot of text before making a decision. You also roll some dice at the start to give your character some stats, and then you roll dice to fight monsters, etc. You've got to pick up items, and then you've got to keep track on paper whether those items are in your possession, and then it might ask you at a later stage whether you have that item to use in a particular case. You might be stuck, you might have fallen into a place and you need a rope to get out, and if you've picked up the rope earlier, you can use it. Obviously, you can cheat, but it kind of relied on people playing the game, role-playing, I guess, right? So there's many of these, and some of them were done by other people, like this is, for example, Lone Wolf, the Lone Wolf series by Joe Dever. Now, again, I've always loved this book. There's one bit in this book that absolutely freaks me out, and I still hate the illustration because it's so spooky. The illustrations themselves were very creepy, because if you look at these faces, it's just the way they're drawn. Everyone sort of looks a little bit like a zombie, and it always used to weird me out a little bit. But there is one specific illustration in this. Where you find yourself staring at a hellghast. Even the name is scary, and this is the picture of it. And I used to always dread this picture when I was reading the book. It's a freaky ghost thing, sort of skeletal figure with rotten flesh. It's very, very nice sounding. Now, brilliant books, and again, I like those the best because they are very, very interactive. There's a little bit of text, and you make decisions, and there is a lot of gameplay in it. The other ones are more books, puzzles, etc. Right? These ones are really you can see how they would translate brilliantly into a full-on role-playing game on a computer or something, or on a phone. Finally saying that, I say that as I'm holding the wrong book. So again, the Steve Jackson ones. Funnily enough, lately, I think this year or last year, or in the last few years, these have been ported officially to devices like iPhones, etc., Androids, and so now you can get some of these books on your devices and play them. And what they've done is they've included the old illustrations, and they've also colored them. So now, instead of having to remember whether you have a rope and whether you've collected it before, the device does it for you. So it's a really nice progression taking these books onto the devices, because I sort of feel like you're still reading, you're still doing something which inspires imagination, I guess, because I do enjoy reading. I think that it's getting a bit lost, but with things like Kindle and whatever, why not make these into interactive apps? I mean, it's cool. So I really like what they've done there, and they've taken these books and basically showing them to a new generation. I've also heard and I've seen that they're republishing these books. I've seen a lot of on Twitter and stuff. A lot of kids are playing these at schools now again, which is really funny because it's kind of goes around in circles. So I love these books, and I'm trying to get my hands on more of them, and I find them extremely inspiring to game design. You can read through these things and they just spark ideas. You might be something in a cave and you're like, oh man, I'd love to make something where a character is in a cave and there's spiders and things like that. It just really sparks ideas for games and things, So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode about my book stash. Now I gotta put all this back in my shelf because I've taken it out and half of the things are falling out now. Got all my figurines in front. And I guess I will see you guys in the next episode of Mixed Nuts.